My mother's side of the family has a lot of people who play music. So my grandma taught piano and was an organist. My grandfather was in a barbershop quartet. My aunt plays the flute. Everyone played an instrument, but nobody wrote music, and it wasn't really considered something that you did as a profession unless you were going to be a teacher. And so when I was a kid, I actually thought I was going to be a scientist. I was very involved in science. I did the science Olympics when I was in middle school. My team won first place. I wrote an essay that won me some contest to spend the night in the science center in Balboa Park. I did not think I was going to be a musician. You know, I played the piano and I did it very seriously, but it wasn't something that was a career path, you know, and this is partially because of my family. My dad, being from southern India, was very adamant that I was going to do something practical, like to be a doctor, or second choice, you could be a lawyer or an engineer, and that was pretty much it. So I think the shift is in thinking that it was something that I would want to do as a career, and that isn't even something that I made a conscious decision about. It just sort of happened. Looking at You is a techno-noir opera about privacy and algorithmic weaponization. So I first got a discovery grant from Opera America that allowed me and Rob, one, to do the first draft of the piece and to do a workshop of it at Opera America. Kristen came to that workshop and afterwards said, I want to direct the piece. And so it started off as this vague idea to do something about Edward Snowden and privacy. Rob took this basic structure of Casablanca and put it on a social media company in the not so distant future. And that's sort of where the story comes from. Is we have Dorothy is the chief technology officer of a company. On the first day she arrives at work, she discovers that her lover who disappeared has now become the world's most famous whistleblower. She has a piece of technology called Transit that he needs to escape the government. So will she give it to him or will she turn him in? That's part of it. At the same time, she has created a dating app that uses an algorithm to decide whether you should date someone, but the algorithm begins to go haywire and make decisions about people that it's not supposed to. And while this is all going on, if people come in and sign our consent form, then their publicly available information goes into the video design of the show. But that consent form is buried in a terms of use agreement. And if you read it, then maybe you won't want to, but most people don't read them. And that's part of the other point that we're trying to make, because you want to put enough into the show that you make people aware but don't hurt them. Then also thinking, as long as there is an internal consistency to the piece, then trusting that the audience is going to make those connections without my beating them over the head with it. Because I think there's a really fine line in making an emotional connection for the audience and forcing an emotional connection for the audience. When you are faced with a text as a composer, you have a choice. If this is something that looks scary to you, do you set it with scary music or do you just set it? Like, what kind of music would represent a culture in Silicon Valley or Silicon Hills where our show takes place? So it has to be something that's electronic, right? And it has to be something upbeat. So EDM really just seemed like a logical choice. But I'm not commenting musically on the ethical questions. Instead, I'm letting the narrative of the story inform how those ethical questions play out. We're putting out scenarios and letting the audience make their own conclusions about how they feel.